Professor Kanji Yukatani is a brilliant pharmaceutical specialist who entered the medical field after his younger sister died from an unknown illness. After pulling several all-nighters, he dies from exhaustion but awakens to find himself in another world. He wakes up to find a maid called Charlotte informing him that he is Faruma do Medishisu, a young boy from a respected noble family of pharmacists. He was left unconscious after being struck by lightning and has been unconscious for quite a while. A confused Faruma asks Charlotte to explain who he is, and she informs him that his father is Bruno do Medishisu, an archduke, and his mother is Beatrice. He also has two siblings, a younger sister called Blanche and an older brother called Palais. However, Charlotte is frightened to learn that Faruma has also forgotten how to practice divine arts, despite him having an aptitude for water magic. She says that in a worst-case scenario, he might be stripped of his noble rank. He then returns to his room and using Charlotte's advice of imagining the concept of water, he successfully casts water magic after thinking of its chemical composition. He continues experimenting and finds that if he understands the basic chemical composition of an element, he can create it with his left hand, while his right hand eliminates substances. However, he is limited only to basic elements and cannot create complex mixtures. Charlotte returns to his room and asks if he also remembers his medicinal training, as his father has a penchant for springing pop quizzes during dinner. She brings him to his private library, and Faruma reads through several of the books and realizes that the current level of medicine in this world is that of the medieval era. During dinner, Faruma is quizzed by his father, and he is successfully able to answer. Satisfied that he has fully recovered, he asks him to continue with his studies. The following day, he meets his private tutor called Hélène Bonnefoy, who instantly suspects something is strange about Faruma. He apologizes and says that his memories were affected by lightning. Satisfied with this explanation, Hélène begins teaching him the basics of divine arts. All noble families have a natural aptitude with magic, and all have a guardian deity. In Faruma's and Palais' case, it is Panictheos, the god of medicine, while hers is Hydratheos, the god of water. Furthermore, there are 5 attributes of divine arts: fire, water, air, earth, and null, further divided into more complex subcategories. Faruma asks what the null category is, but Hélène says it has not been seen in 300 years. She brings him to a local lake to practice the magic spell Spear of Water, but when Faruma casts it, the power is immense, even without him saying the incantation. A horrified Hélène asks him to place his hands on a divinometer which measures magic power, but to her shock it breaks, which she says has never happened in history. She finds a mark on Faruma's arm which she identifies as the mark of Panictheos, and she instructs him not to hold a divinometer in front of anyone. Exhausted, she ends the lesson early. On the way back, Faruma learns that when he makes a ring with his fingers and places it over his eye, he is able to spot medical issues, which glows blue, and when he identifies it, it glows white, such as Hélène's sprained finger. Hélène associates this with the divine eye of Panictheos, able to ascertain and grant medicine to all injuries. She is further horrified after seeing that Faruma has no shadow, causing her to flee. The next day, Faruma's father tells him that Hélène has a high fever and would like to quit effective immediately. He instructs him to deliver a potion and let her to her house, but when Faruma discerns the ingredients of the potion, it is no more than a nutrient drink. Instead, he creates his own medicine which he delivers to Hélène's house. Clad in full armor, Hélène suspects that the potion and medicine are poison, but Faruma reassures her that it is not. Faruma asks her to continue being her tutor, to which she replies there is nothing she could possibly teach him and calls him an incarnation of Panictheos. Faruma replies that he is unable to control his powers and hopes that she is able to help him do so without treating him any differently. The next day, Hélène appears having decided to continue tutoring Faruma. She takes him to a deserted island as a precaution for his immense magic power, and they begin practicing his divine arts. Back at the mansion, Faruma tests his eye of Panictheos on members of the household, identifying underlying illnesses. He learns that if a full recovery from the disease is possible, the glow becomes white upon identification, but if it is impossible, the glow becomes faint. He begins testing his powers, first by creating a cream for Charlotte's eczema. He can produce any solid and liquid if he knows the basic composition. Using the mansion's facilities, he successfully makes a heparinoid cream and gives it to Charlotte. He also gives the rest of the mansion's personnel treatments for their illnesses, and they all thank him profusely. Charlotte explains that they had never received medicine from them before, and most medicines are far too expensive for commoners to afford. Realizing that few medicines actually work in this time period, Faruma resolves to make medicine accessible and affordable regardless of social class. The next day, Faruma learns that Blanche has fallen with chickenpox, and he is warned by his father not to see her, citing that even though he likely developed an immunity to chickenpox after contracting it in the past, a reinfection may occur. Faruma is impressed that he knows this fact, despite it only being confirmed recently in the modern world. He goes and develops powdered acyclovir, a treatment for chickenpox, and brings it to Blanche. He asks her to keep it a secret and spends the rest of the afternoon caring for her, which surprises Blanche, who says that Faruma had never fed, doted, or read stories to her before. When Blanche says she loves him, it pains him slightly as he remembers his own sister who passed away. The next day, Blanche has shown a full recovery, stunning their father. Later, Faruma creates a Leeuwenhoek microscope which will enable him to examine people without using his right hand, as well as bacteria. His father calls for him and says that they have an emergency house call to the Empress, but Faruma notices him coughing. Faruma and his father, called Bruno, arrive at the estate of Empress Elizabeth II, where they are informed that the condition of her lungs has suddenly worsened. Though Faruma is initially impressed by his father's ability to examine her, he is exasperated when he sees him consider the positions of the stars. Bruno then devises a potion which Faruma identifies as an anesthetic due to the smell of opium. When Faruma realizes that they do not intend to cure her, but instead ease her suffering, he uses his Eye of Panic-Theos and identifies her illness as pneumonia compounded by tuberculosis. Because no syringe technology exists in this era, he is forced to develop an oral solution, but its complex structure makes it difficult for him to envision. When he sees the Empress's children come to her bedside and burst into tears, he approaches and asks for her permission to treat her, but everyone around him, including his father, rebukes him, telling him that this is no time for jokes. However, since she was a top practitioner of divine arts herself, the Empress sees that Faruma alone has yet to give up home, and permits him to come up with a medicine. Faruma locks himself in a room and begins creating several medicines so that the bacteria does not build up a resistance: isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and rifampin. To ease the process, he draws their molecular structure on sheets of paper. Bruno bursts into the room and demands to know what kind of medicine Faruma is trying to create, as pneumonia and tuberculosis, dubbed the White Death, is incurable, which impresses Faruma as Bruno was able to identify the illness without the use of proper tools. When Faruma refuses to answer clearly, Bruno attacks him and demands to know the answer once more. Faruma points to his journal and lies by saying it was all revealed to him by Panic-Theos after he was struck by lightning. After seeing the mark of Panic-Theos on Faruma's arm, Bruno realizes that somehow he has been blessed by the god. He allows Faruma to finish the treatment and to bring it to the Empress. Faruma brings the medicine to the Empress, but first, using his microscope and a sample he retrieved from her, he shows her the bacteria inside her, which comes as a huge shock to her. She also shows it to the court physician, who is equally astounded. Faruma explains to her and the rest of the court that the bacteria can be treated, and the White Death, thought to be an incurable disease, can be cured. Although he touted himself on connecting with his patients, he has failed to do so with his son, but he can sense that the Faruma in front of him is not the son he knew. When they arrive, Faruma gives him treatment for his own developing tuberculosis and asks him to continue teaching him, to which Bruno smiles and the two shake hands. 3 months since the Empress's diagnosis, Faruma and Bruno have exchanged a vast amount of information. However, Faruma is warned that although being identified as an incarnation of Panic-Theos may pacify the populace, certain pharmacologists may find his methods as heresy, and there may be an attempt on his life. Faruma leaves for the Empress's appointment, where he is greeted by her son called Noah. When he asks him what Faruma would like as a reward for healing the Empress, Faruma says he would like to open a pharmacy that caters to all, noble or commoner. During the examination, the Empress thanks Faruma as she had resigned herself to her fate, but he alone brought her hope that reignited her desire to live. When she wonders if she is still fit to rule after being reduced to a pitiable state once, Faruma encourages her, saying that firstly, as a mother, she could never be worthless in her son's eyes. Months later, she makes a full recovery and summons Bruno to discuss Faruma. At a royal audience, the Empress awards Bruno with the territory of Marseille, renowned for its vast troves of pharmaceutical herbs and remedies, while Faruma is promoted from an apprentice to a royal pharmaceutist, surprising everyone. But Faruma is surprised further still when she grants him permission to establish a pharmacy in the capital city. The engineers and stonemasons ask Faruma for ideas on the pharmacy's blueprints, and they are intrigued when they see his plans, immediately getting to work. As for the name, when Faruma blurts out Parallel World Pharmacy, the workers immediately place it on the nameboard, much to his exasperation. He is then visited by Veron, head of the St. Flou Vampire's Pharmaceutist Guild, who tries to intimidate and belittle him due to his age, but Faruma expertly retorts to all his insults, and he is driven away by Hélène. With Hélène and Charlotte joining him, Faruma still needs someone to handle the accounting part of the pharmacy. When he arrives home, he learns that Cedric, a longtime manager of the estate's finances, has been dismissed. Wishing to hire him as his accountant, he asks his father for permission, who allows him to do so. In addition, he gives Faruma a chest full of gold as additional starting capital, a gift which he greatly appreciates. It turns out that Cedric's dismissal was intended by Bruno so that Faruma could have someone he could trust in charge of his finances. Business is not going well a month since the pharmacy opened. Hélène explains that commoners often go to long-standing pharmacies while nobles simply call for a physician when they need to. Furthermore, being the son of an archduke makes commoners hesitant to patronize his store. Using complaints and impressions from a survey Charlotte conducted, including being afraid of the prices and intimidated by a royal seal, they work to improve the store. Faruma's mother and father visit and ask him to give them a tour of his pharmacy. The first floor houses the product display, a compounding room and a waiting room. The second floor holds a patient care unit as well as an isolation room. The third floor holds a break room for staff, and the fourth floor has a private research lab for Faruma's use. However, when Bruno asks about his foot traffic, Faruma replies that commoners have not been entering, and his mother suggests he offer cosmetic products, which may attract commoners if the prices are low. Having been involved with the cosmetics industry during a research and development venture, Faruma sees value in this. Additionally, he shares that as of late, bloodletting has become popular among younger women to have pale skin. But the procedure is dangerous if carried out too often. A man bursts in the pharmacy and asks for help as his lady has collapsed. Faruma excuses himself and goes to the girl who he identifies has collapsed due to excessive blood loss from bloodletting. He brings her to his pharmacy where he learns she is Chloe, the daughter of a renowned entrepreneur. She was rejected by a man she likes because of his preference for paler skin, prompting her bloodletting procedures. Faruma supplies her with medicine for her illness, but when he says she should not put on makeup either, she says that she cannot live without it. Understanding her feelings, he asks that she return to his pharmacy in 1 week, and he prepares a safe face concealer for her to use. When she returns, Faruma supplies her with everything she needs: a makeup cream that also protects against harmful UV rays from the sun, loose powder, and makeup remover. Chloe is incredibly grateful, and the pharmacy begins selling makeup sets to commoners on the street, and they are an instant hit. Soon the pharmacy is flooding with customers, and they are barely able to keep up with the sudden spike in demand. Disappointed that the cosmetic kits are sold out again, Chloe suggests that Faruma open a subsidiary that focuses solely on cosmetics, a venture she is happy to fund and supply the pharmaceutists for. Chloe establishes a second location for the pharmacy's cosmetics and invites women with extensive medical knowledge, but have been laid off due to giving birth, which pleases Faruma. He wishes them to have as much maternity and family leaves as they need to continue working. A second survey conducted by Charlotte reveals that they have finally made themselves well known and respected, and they vow to continue improving the store. In a post-credits scene, Faruma provides the Empress with lip gloss, which makes her lips glisten, much to her delight, and thanks her for banning the use of mercury and lead in cosmetic products. However, the Empress warns him that the other merchants will not take kindly to having their businesses be brought to the verge of collapse as a result. In response, Faruma says he will release the production methods of certain products, which impresses the Empress. Furthermore, she asks him to raise the prices of his products as it is also ruining the economy of the commoners, who cannot hope to compete with such low prices, a fact Faruma acknowledges and accepts. Faruma's family visits Bruno's new territory of Marcera, a beautiful seaside coast, an important trading port touted as the gateway to the empire, as well as a major producer of medicinal herbs. He visits the beach where he sees Charlotte and Blanche making a sandcastle. When they start playing in the water, Faruma is reminded of his sister, with whom he used to visit the beach with a lot. One summer she is prevented from going into the sea due to not being tall enough, and Faruma promises that next year she can go. However, next year never comes as she soon dies from her illness. Faruma is suddenly alerted to the sound of Blanche being carried away by the waves, and Faruma dives in after her, not wanting to lose a second sister. When she goes beneath the waves, an angry Faruma commands the ocean itself to go away, and he creates a dry area where they can walk on the seafloor. Hélène is terrified at Faruma's display of power and questions him at what that power was. When he says it could be a negative attribute, divine art, Hélène explains that attribute certainly reduces the amount of a substance. What Faruma did was completely annihilate a portion of the ocean. That night, Faruma reflects that he completely evaporated the ocean, including the salt within it, and one wrong move he could have evaporated the water inside Blanche along with Hélène too. Later, the Church of the Saint Fleuve Empire receives a report from the Archdiocese of Marcera regarding a boy with no shadow completely evaporating a part of the ocean. The bishop instructs them to find the boy with no shadow. Back at the pharmacy, they enjoy a rejuvenated business, and Alen comments that they might not be able to close again for some time. When Faruma notices men in white robes staring at him, he approaches them, but they quickly leave soon after. Charlotte suggests they inform the guards, and Faruma agrees. One early morning, a carriage loaded with rocks crashes into the pharmacy, a brazen act which makes Bruno furious, calling it tantamount to a war on the Medicis. Faruma goes and checks on the pharmacy, but before he leaves, Iz asks him if he has any suspects, and although Veron and the robe men come to mind, he tells his father he needs more time to gather information. Bruno wishes him safety and makes haste to inform the palace about the incident. When he arrives at the pharmacy, he is disheartened at the damage done, but at the very least the compounding room is unharmed. However, their store regulars start appearing to show their support and do whatever they can to help repair the pharmacy, which touches Faruma. However, he is soon called by a girl in distress who says her father has collapsed. Everyone tells him to go and leave repairs to them, which he does. He rides with her by horse, but it is a trap as he is surrounded by inquisitors of the Holy Kingdom, and have identified him as the boy with no shadow. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.